that inside Israel in the last year, we've been terribly divided. You've heard about it. For the months leading up to October 7th, there was some terrible internal fighting on a wide range of issues. Some of these fights, like the legal reform, brought this country to a true crisis because of the potential effect it would have on our independent judiciary and on our independent branches of government, and ultimately, possibly, even Israel's democracy. Some even say that this internal crisis led the leadership to a distraction which contributed to the crisis of October 7th. Most of Israeli society today believes and wants elections which will reflect the will of the people, and hopefully with some renewed leadership, including with some young heroes who have fought in this terrible war and who have showed incredible heroism beyond politics, the country will move into a new and united direction. I share in this wish. But you know, there's an amazing statistic that 70% of the people in Israel, from the right and from the left, from all sectors of Israeli society, actually agree about 70% of the social issues that concern most of society here. Like we need better schooling, better transportation, better healthcare, cost of living, cost of apartments, and so on. But what happens is that despite the incredible agreement about the actual issues, there's another statistic that shows that we're 128% more emotionally polarized than ever before. So that even if we agree with each other on the substance of the issues, we can't agree because we can't get past our emotional issues of lack of trust and lack of acceptance. Isn't that terrible? I believe this emotional polarization is happening all over the world. But these two statistics put together are actually a little bit hopeful, because it means that the extreme groups on both sides in Israel, on the right and on the left, have polarized the emotional conversation. But if we can agree and focus and get past the emotion, we can move toward broad consensus on a broad range of substantive issues that are important to most of the society. But when it comes to the war right now, for example, most Israelis are supportive of the war because it is a just war. And now I believe that there is a growing support to bring the hostages home, but there is tremendous division on this point if it means to end the war. And the country, it's in an uproar about it. We're torn apart. We are, for lack of a better word, fighting for our lives on the one hand, sending our children to Gaza to fight this just war, living the horrors day by day. And in addition to this, there's the added issue of an entire sector of society carrying the burden of fighting, where the Haredi population, for the most part, are not serving or doing national service. And this is driving the majority of the country mad. And all the while, we simply need to bring our hostages back from the tunnels of hell. And so people are devastated and wondering, do we stop now? Was it all for nothing? Are the 80,000 displaced people in the north ever going to return to their homes and have normal lives? Is there going to be an all-out war in the north? Are the people of Otef Aza ever going to be able to return their kibbutzim and live in peace? Did our girls and boys die in vain? Are we going to forget them in the tunnels? When are we going to get those girls back? When are we going to get those boys and fathers and grandfathers back? Please, God, please don't tell me that it wasn't worth it. I need to believe it was worth it. I say all this to you to portray to you what I think that most Israelis are thinking today. It's something along these lines. Well, for most Israelis today, there's a lot more. No Bibi, yes Bibi. But I'm purposely leaving all of that out. Because number one, I'm not one of those people that believes all of our problems will be solved when one man disappears. And many people disagree with me, and I don't want to distract everyone by getting involved in that. And number two, suffice it to say that I'm a firm believer, and this is not a popular opinion, I should tell you, that we need a unity government of sane and responsible people. And I want all the grown-ups in the room to please stand up and start working together and get over themselves. But we can leave my views on this point for a speech another day. But since most of you are not living in Israel, I think I should address the other super important part of our relationship, which is between Israel Jewry and the diaspora Jewry. Now, I think for some people the relationship is going through renewal because people realize the importance of their Jewish identity since October 7th and the shocking rise of anti-Semitism. But for others, Israel has become a genocidal state and they want nothing to do with it, especially for those kids under 25 who don't remember that the Jewish people wandered the globe without our own passports for thousands of years, guests in other people's countries, subject to the whims of a leader who will just accept us or reject us. Diaspora Jews and Israeli Jews need each other, and our relationship with each other is critical to our success as a people. There is enormous power in being united. On the other hand, I do think we need to acknowledge that we're different culturally, and this affects our points of view. Take, for example, an 18-year-old growing up in Israel and an 18-year-old growing up in North America. An 18-year-old growing up in Israel is entering the army, or a pre-army leadership program, or a year of national service before the army. And this is a defining moment in a young person's development in Israel, where they are giving back to the country for 2 to 3 years. In North America, an 18-year-old is entering a university where they will focus on their area of study. They may experience anti-Semitism or they may not, but this is a major developmental time for their growth and exposure to ideas on campus which will define and shape them for life. The very starting point of their entry to Jewish adulthood is totally different. Or take, for example, the way we approach religion. Outside of Israel, there's a greater respect for the different forms of Judaism, and inside Israel, there's far less tolerance for pluralism and different forms of religious expression. Although there is some progress on this front, it is slow. Or look at the subject of how we look at security for the state of Israel and security for the Jewish people outside of Israel. The issue of security for the state of Israel falls on the shoulders of the children of Israel, who fight on the front lines with their lives and give years of their lives. Inside Israel, the civil discourse is about the fairness of sharing in this burden across all of Israeli society. In the international community, the conversation about Israeli security focuses on the financial support that they are being asked to sustain for Israel, and the development of local security groups who will volunteer to protect Jewish community events. Or finally, take, for example, the humanitarian arguments that are being made against the Israeli military in Gaza. In the diaspora, our friends are faced with humanitarian arguments with statistics of starving children and Islamic Jihad footage of burning hospitals that weigh heavily on any thoughtful person. Any loss of life is, of course, a tragedy, and we are taught to understand and feel, and these arguments are difficult to explain away to any person with a moral compass. In Israel, we start the day faced with the reality that our people have been raped and murdered and tortured and burned alive on October 7th. We understand that the statistics of the Hamas-run health ministry may be false, that the footage is suspect, and that Hamas does not value human life. We know that our Israeli military does not intentionally kill civilians. There is no doubt, no hesitation, no second thought on whether we are doing everything in our power to protect innocent civilians in horrendous circumstances created by Hamas, who uses humans as shields and does not value human life. So after your time here at the Maccabi World Union Congress, this is the important thing that you all need to take away. You need to go home and you need to talk about what you have seen. You need to learn how to talk about the facts from and to people who come from different starting points, because each and every one of you is an ambassador that can make a difference to that friend of yours or that young person who is not sure what to believe. We know that we're losing some of our youth who don't know the facts and don't feel emotionally connected, and who are afraid to be canceled if they express their support of Israel, and this is tragic. It is a challenge that everyone in this room should take on and take home. In my day-to-day life, I'm the chairwoman of a big real estate business here, the Azrieli Group. We have 21 of the best shopping malls, 15 office buildings, 4 senior housing complexes, a booming data center business in Europe, and more. In the last few months, all businesses in Israel have been affected by the call-ups of reserve duty soldiers, some serving for 150 days in Gaza, some serving in the north, and families have been separated for long periods of time. And when these soldiers come back, reintegration into families and the workforce is not simple. But we are such a resilient people. We know that life must go on. This is our great revenge. We continue to live. The success of the Azrieli Group has enabled our charitable foundations, the Azrieli Foundation in Canada and in Israel, to give tremendous donations to hospitals and rescue forces, to provide psychological support and equipment for soldiers and families, to support families of the hostages, to provide services for mental health and trauma, as well as to host small businesses and exhibition spaces in our malls, to establish classrooms, to create army assembly areas in our parking lots, and many, many other initiatives. But today, the most important thing that we need to do is to stay united as a people. And we must also realize that our starting points are very different, and depending on where we come from, and that notwithstanding these differences, we share a history, and we are here to stay together as a people. If we fall apart, that will be the real victory of our enemies. And I am still optimistic. I am hopeful that we can get back to the conversations about the Abraham Accords, which would be a real game changer in the region. And let's not forget that in the meantime, day-to-day life in Israel is still the best place in the world to live. The country is vibrant. There is an amazing social, art, and culture scene. But it's more than that. In Israel, you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. It is so much more than just a safe haven for Jews. It's a place where you feel the entrepreneurial spirit of our people on every corner. It has been proven again and again, against all the odds, to be one of the happiest places for people to live, because it turns out that happiness is about having a purpose. And in the building and creating and sustaining our Zionist homeland, Israel is all about purpose. One of the biggest outcomes of October 7th is the incredible heroism and leadership that our youth has shown. We thought our TikTok generation was self-absorbed, but that has turned out to be totally wrong. This young generation is what is giving me the most hope for the new Israel of tomorrow. In Israel post-October 7th, the future leaders have yet to surface. It will be some of the young people who have been protecting our country with their bones, their blood, and their skin, who will be the new generation of Zionists, the leaders like the ones I once emulated as a child, the young people who know the true Israel of today is a unified Israel and a melting pot of the different sectors of Israeli society, of all Israeli citizens, a proud, thoughtful, democratic, Jewish, value-based, and strong society of tomorrow. And I want to remind you of something very important. You do not need to agree with the Israeli government or Israeli policies in order to believe in our right to a Jewish homeland. You do not. But you do need to be willing to live with the messy business of building our country, and to take a long-term view of the situation, and to stay the course over time. because Israel may not be perfect, but never, ever forget that it's yours. Thank you.